sometimes when we are lackadaisical, we lack it, while other times we're oozing it out of every pore. One thing is certain, we are constantly trying to channel it for when we need it most. However, we can't quite put our finger on this essential element. Up and at 'em! Join me as we try to demystify motivation on today's episode of FYI. Welcome to For Your Info.
En inglés.
You got it. Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of FYI. And I figured since it's January when this is coming out, this would be the perfect time to look at motivation. So I hope you guys are motivated, and if not, I hope you are by the end of today's show. Always remember, there are 2 episodes of FYI that come out every week. One that's for the general public, and then one that's exclusively for patrons. And if you want to get that, you can get the bonus episode and so much more for as little as €3 a month. Remember, it's exclusively for patrons, but you can find out all about it over on Patreon. So the patron is the person and the website is Patreon. A lot of times people get mixed up with that. Patreon, the website, and patron is what we would call a person. And the word patron is sponsor, patrocinador, mecenas. So it makes sense. My patrons, I call them my students because, well, we spend a lot of time together every week, whether they're listening to the podcast or whether we're reviewing in our weekly review. And we even have a monthly masterclass. If you guys want more information, check it out. It is an awesome community, and I want to send a shout out to each and every one of you guys, especially my super duper students, Marta, Candy, Javier, Roberto, David, Jose Maria, Mila, Alex, Edgar, and Aina. And don't forget about my interstellar students, Lina, Isa, Diego, and Carmen. Keep up the great work. You guys are kicking butt. And if the rest of you who still haven't made up your mind, no habéis decidido, don't worry. Take a look. I have some free samples I can send you, unas muestras. And if you still decide it's not for you, we love you just the same. You can listen to the free part, and eventually the bonus part comes out in the future, but you've got to be patient. So if you want access to bonus episodes, classes with me, and so much more, check it all out on patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. All right, let's take a look at our intro. I said sometimes when we are lackadaisical. Now, lackadaisical, this is a really weird word, isn't it? Lackadaisical. I love putting these kind of words in the intro, and it means apathetic. Abúlico, it says here. Languido. I don't even know if I pronounced that. Apathetic. You don't really care about very much. And it's when you lack motivation. And that was the next word I used. I said, we are lackadaisical and we lack it. Carecemos de ellos. While other times we are oozing it out of every pore. And ooze is that, I think it's a rebosar. It's oozing out of every pore. Rebosar, exudar, irradiar. Estas son palabras mayores, as you say. And the word pore, I'm not referring to poor, pobre, but pore, poros. Those little holes in your skin where your skin gets to breathe. Then I said, one thing is certain. Now you can say certain, like that. Or you can say certain, like I say it, with that glottal stop. Certain. Can you say this sentence? Are you certain there's a fountain in the mountain? If not, you can say, are you certain there's a fountain in the mountain? What you can't say is, Are you certain there's a fountain in the mountain? That's the one I won't let you say. Practice those words because, of course, when you practice them aloud, you will definitely get the hang of it. Then I said we are constantly trying to channel it. And channel, like in Spanish, canalizar, for when we need it most, right? We've got a big event coming up. Maybe we've got to give a speech. Who knows? But we want to make sure we're totally motivated when the time comes. But that's the problem. I said, however, we can't quite put our finger on it. And if you can't put your finger on something, it means you can't identify it 100%. You can't quite figure it out. It's something we all need, and I called it an essential element, right? I said we can't put our finger on this essential element. So we're going to try and figure out where motivation comes from, things we can do to keep motivated, and we're going to take a look at songs, so much. It's going to be an awesome show. And the expression I said after you heard the do-do-do-do-do-do, charge, the expression is up and atom. And you never say it correctly. You never say up and at them. You say up and atom, arriba, y a por ellos. Esto es, vamos a conquistar el mundo. Up and at 'em. And then I said, join me as we try to demystify motivation on today's episode. So, what is it? Well, first, I like to do this. Let's take a look at some synonyms. Some ways of saying motivation: drive. He has a lot of drive. Or you can use the adjective. He's very driven. Another one we use a lot too is encouragement. I need motivation. I need encouragement. That's why I'm here as your teacher. Yeah, I teach you the grammar and all that jazz, but I'm also here to encourage you, to give you a boost. That's another way to say it. An incentive, a push, an impulse to give you the inspiration. But the hunger, see, there's another way to say it. The hunger has to come from you. You've got to be hungry. But my favorite one by far is he's very driven. Somebody who's driven is also a go-getter. A go-getter is somebody who goes after what they want. They don't make excuses. So I figured that was a good way to open up the show, talking about different ways to say motivation. But what exactly is motivation? Oh, I thought you'd never ask. No, I knew you were going to ask, and I looked it up. Lo busqué. I looked it up in the dictionary, and I'm going to read it to you word for word, and we'll take a look at some of the trickier words as we go. Motivation is the reason for which humans and other animals initiate, continue, or terminate a behavior, un comportamiento, at a given time, en un tiempo dado. Motivational states, estados de motivación, are commonly understood as forces acting within the agent, okay, dentro de el agente, that create a disposition to engage in goal-directed behavior. Una disposición para hacer o participar en este tipo de comportamiento. And they're calling it goal-directed. Another way we say it is goal-oriented. Hey, Paco is a really goal-oriented guy. It means his goals, his objectives, they're always right in front of him. He's got a clear idea of what he wants. Then the definition goes on to say, it is often held that different mental states compete with each other, compiten uno con el otro, and that only the strongest state determines behavior. The thing that pops into my mind here is in the cartoons, you got the devil on one shoulder, you got the angel on the other one, and the devil's saying, you don't have to study, go out with your friends, go to the movies, go to the arcade, and the angel saying, you should study for that big test. So this is the definition of that, but we've seen this a million times personified in that devil and that angel, that conscience that talks to you, that inner voice. The word motivation is derived from the word motive. You say móvil in Spanish, which was a little bit confusing for me at first because I thought of a phone. But no, móvil. In a crime, what is the motive? What is the reason? Who would have a motive? If he collected life insurance after his wife died, well, he's got a motive. Tiene móvil. And the word denotes a person's needs, desires, wants, or urges. And that happens a lot too. People get these uncontrollable urges. And then it says it's the process of motivating individuals to take action in order to achieve a goal. So there's that word again. They keep mentioning that word goal and achieving it and carrying it out. I'm just looking for patterns here, as I imagine you guys are doing as well. And then it says the psychological elements fueling people's behavior. To fuel is fuel in Spanish, so to give it power, to make it stronger. Elements fueling people's behavior in the context of job goals might include a desire for money. So, that's one of the basic ones, I guess. People want to get a good job so they can make a lot of money, and that's their motivation. And I know personally, money shouldn't be your motivation in life. But we said we're going to look at things that motivate people, not things that motivate me. Now, there are many theories, teorías, we say theories, pronounce that one with me aloud, theories, and they're competing theories, as always. What these theories do is they try to describe what goals usually or always motivate people. And the first one that comes to mind is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Which means once our basic needs like food, water, shelter, love, once those are all covered, well, then we can focus on other goals. And of course, by achieving goals, we can continue to fulfill our higher needs, which in many cases is love. We all need to feel loved. We all need to belong. We all want to feel safe. I'm sure you guys studied it. It's Maslow's hierarchy. It's a triangle of needs, basic needs. And according to this, the higher needs can only provide motivation once the lower needs have been fulfilled. So you can't put the cart before the horse. That's why we need to take care of our basic needs before we can be motivated to take care of other things that maybe aren't so basic. This can get very, very scientific. So I'm trying to break it down, desglosarlo for the layman. For somebody like myself, who I'm not a guru. That's an interesting word. You guys say guru. We say guru. In the bonus part, we're going to take a look at some of these gurus. We're also going to take a look at some quotes, and we'll look at movies and music that will pump you up. Hey, there's another way to say to motivate, to pump you up, to get you psyched, mentalizado, to get you stoked. Both of those words are very, very American. All right, well, there are two kinds of motivation, according to the people who study this, the experts, the scientists. And they say motivation may be either intrinsic, and intrinsic is if the activity is desired because it's interesting or enjoyable. You want to eat popcorn because you love the taste and it makes you happy when you eat popcorn. Maybe the smell of the butter reminds you of your childhood. Who knows? But it's direct pleasure from what you're doing. And then the other one, which is called extrinsic, if the agent's goal is an external reward distinct from the activity itself. So you're thinking, I'm going to do this activity, but the reward's not going to come directly from this activity. It'll come later. I guess this one is for more patient people who are looking for long-term results. But I think it's important to think short-term, mid-term, and long-term. That's why they tell you, do a 5-year plan, a 2-year plan, and a 10-year plan. Who knows? And I don't want to get too scientific, as I just said, so let's talk a little bit about the application. Where, in what scenarios in life do we need to motivate people? Well, in a classroom, right? When we're in class, as I said before, I'm not just trying to teach you English. I'm trying to keep you motivated. I'm trying to remind you why you're learning English and remind you that you're doing a great job and that you got to keep at it like with everything. And we're going to look at some tips. We're going to look at some techniques, these ways that we can find this motivation when we just don't have it. We can channel it, as I said in the beginning. So obviously, in a classroom, and what about in sports? There's nothing worse than a team that's on a losing streak and they just get into a rut. A rut is como un mal momento. And it's hard to get out of those ruts because our brain kind of works in circles. So we just keep going around and around. And sometimes we need something big to break that. So in sports, that's huge. In a classroom, keeping people motivated. What about at work? You're the boss. Don't you want a motivated team? Don't you want to know what makes people motivated? What makes my people motivated? And then hopefully try and not just motivate them, but keep them motivated. And that's something we'll talk about as well. One thing is being motivated, and the other thing is staying motivated. How many times we've all done this where you're like, oh, this is it. Tomorrow's the first day of the rest of my life. I'm going to the gym and I'm going to work out like a nut. And then you come back and you can't move for 3 days because you overdid it. Te pasaste tres pueblos, you overdid it, and now you've got sore muscles. I mean, you're feeling like you're 90 years old. That's overdoing it. See, that's a good way to guarantee that you won't go back. So it's better to be consistent, I think, than to just hammer away all in one shot. It's a process, right? Learning a language, I hate when I see that. Oh, 3 weeks, 6 months. What? This is a process. We're supposed to enjoy it. It's not supposed to be, oh man, let's get this over with. If you've got that approach, that attitude, I can guarantee it's going to be hard to stay motivated. So let's talk about some of these pointers, these tips. And you know what? There's no rule that works for everything. There's no blanket rule because maybe what works for me doesn't work for you. And that can be, just think about a song. Maybe there's a song I can't stand. No lo aguanto. But when you hear that song, you're like, this is my song. And you put on the boxing gloves. Okay, I don't mean literally, but you're ready. I mean, if you had to fight somebody, you'd be ready to do that. I think that happens to all of us when we hear the Rocky soundtrack. And we're going to talk about that, as I said later, music and movies that can motivate us. The arts in general, paintings, right? Sculptures. The good news here is you are not alone. Rule number 1, we all struggle with motivation. I think more people struggle with motivation than are motivated. And even those people who write those articles, how to stay motivated. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure they have bad days too. Even those coaches, those gurus, I'm sure they have days where like, oh man, I am not feeling it today. And especially if you have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, those are things that can, damper it. And to put a damper on it would be like rain or something. No, lo impide, I think is the word in Spanish. Another really important tip is set a specific goal, an achievable goal, not I'm going to be dating Sofia Vergara next month. I mean, set a specific goal. What do you want? Not, I want to be famous. That's not enough. Or I want to be well-known. Or I want to be rich. Okay, that's a general, broad thing. Be specific. The more specific you are, the more you can zero in on your goal. And make sure it's achievable with your means, your situation, because I'm not going to be the one to say, to be negative here, but it's got to be achievable. If it isn't, you're just going to be wasting your time. And I believe that anything is possible. In fact, one of the things I live by is, that's possible, but it's improbable, right? So Shakira's going to go out with me on a date. Sure, possible. Of course. I mean, there were 2 people. We can be in the same restaurant. She falls. Sure, but it's improbable. So sometimes that helps me too when I'm like, wait a second, is this really a realistic, achievable goal? When we study acting, I told you guys in the art episode, a really important thing is our super objective. So all our mini objectives point to our super objective. So it helps you define what you're looking for. Then you can see that carrot in front of you, or whatever that prize is. We looked at the word prize before, that reward, that prize. And I like the word rewarding, gratificante. A lot of times we do things because they're rewarding. We talked about that intrinsic motivation before. So now we've got everything, right? We've got our goal. We know what we want. We're realizing that we're not alone, that we just got to keep struggling. But what are we missing here? Well, we got to think about a way of making this goal a part of our life, incorporating it into our life, putting it into our schedule. You want to lose weight? Well, you're going to have to start going to the gym. You're going to have to start spending more time at the grocery store picking up groceries. So you got to put that all into your schedule so you can carry it out. Because having a goal is a beautiful thing, but then you got to think about carrying it out, making it happen. I like that in English. We say, make it happen. Haz que pase. I love the expression that someone said, I can't remember. Oh, Robert Hervajek, his name. And he said, a goal without a deadline is just a dream. Una meta sin una fecha límite es solo un sueño. A goal without a deadline is just a dream. If you have a deadline, well, maybe that'll help you. Maybe you won't put it off. To put off is to procrastinate. Aplazar, I think you say in Spanish. As I said earlier, break it into pieces. Maybe you got to do a lot of little things to reach the big goal. Make it doable tasks, tareas asequibles, that you can do every day. Set reminders. Again, it should be part of your schedule. And then tell your friends and family. Tell them. Yeah, you're going to need their help to stay motivated. And if they don't know you're trying to lose weight or learn English, well, who knows? Maybe they'll offer you some cheesecake. And, well, that's tempting, isn't it? So be around people who are supportive. Be vocal about what you want to do, about your motivation, your goals. And if you're around positive people, they're only going to help you achieve those goals. And then you have to regularly, I hate that word, regularly review your goals and progress. It's not enough to now keep working on it, but now we need to keep track. Keep a log. I think you say bitácora. Keep a log of your progress. And when you start to see progress, that's a motivator in and of itself. I love when my students see and feel their own progress because I look at them, they look back at me, and we exchange a smile like, I got this. And I said, yes, you do. You also want to keep up that momentum, inertia. Once you get going, it's easier. Once you make it a habit, it becomes a lot easier. So that's so important, that momentum, as we say. And something that's always worked for me, and my dad always taught me this one, is visualization. You have to see yourself achieving the goal, but I mean really see yourself there. So like with my first book, English Everywhere, I already saw myself at the book signing. I saw myself holding the book. I saw the cover in my head. I saw the vision before it was a tangible thing. And I saw myself achieving the goal. And it helped me. Then, of course, as I said, you got to put in the hard work, put it into your schedule, be constant, and keep that momentum up. But for me, visualization is such an important tool. What works for you guys? I'd love to hear about it in our weekly review class. And then once you're motivated, as we said earlier, you've got to stay motivated and be patient. Be patient. Slow and steady wins the race, as we say. No, sin prisa, sin pausa, I think would be the perfect translation. And what works for me too is reminding myself, why am I doing this? Sometimes we forget the goal. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting in so much time and energy into this? And then that reminds us that we just got to keep trucking on. And to keep trucking on es muy nativo, es seguir moviendo hacia adelante. Let's use English as an example. I mean, why are you learning English? If you ever get demotivated, just ask yourself that question. Why on earth am I learning English or a language or whatever it is that you're doing? In English, I know it's to open doors, give you better job opportunities. Also, when you're traveling, it'll help you communicate better, make friends, and I think that was the icing on the cake. It'll make you a better communicator. And who doesn't want to be a better communicator? That's good enough for me to stay motivated. That said, I hope this episode pumped you up, te motivó, and I hope you'll join us in the bonus episode of FYI.